Thanks for joining me here on the Chris Spangle Show. I really appreciate you spending some time with us today. Obviously, it's been a difficult week for many people. It is, what day of the week is it? It is Wednesday. So we're almost a week out from Charlie Kirk being killed by an assassin. Looks like it was politically motivated. I've been thinking a lot, like, how can I contribute to the conversation? Okay. Instead of taking advantage of the conversation. A lot of people want to litigate Charlie Kirk's life. A lot of people want to litigate the life of the assassin. A lot of people want to do all kinds of things, right? I didn't watch Charlie Kirk. We have two very different approaches. I don't know that how much it matters at this point in terms of him as an individual, but what I have noticed in the conversations is that people want to speak up now. They want to talk about religion. They want to talk about politics. They want to engage in the debate. They want to have some courage in having public conversations around things, but they don't quite know how. The other thing is people are bemoaning how uncivil things have gotten in our society and in terms of talking about these things. So I wanted to have a conversation with my friend Jeff Worrell. He's a city councilor up in a town called Carmel. It is an affluent suburban area of Indianapolis, and it's actually a great city. And people who live here locally are going to call me a traitor if you don't live in Carmel, but I really like Carmel, and it's because of Jeff. Jeff invited me up to be on a podcast years ago, I think, to talk about libertarianism, and we just built a friendship. And Jeff, over the years, has been building this project called Project Civility. It looks like Project Civility. I guess this is the same word. I don't know. We get to that at the end because I'm like thinking he's saying project like he's Canadian, but it's so. He's got a civility summit coming up in a week, and I wanted to invite him on just to talk about, like, what is civility? What are the rules of the road? And I think you're going to be surprised because so many people think civility is just shutting up, being quiet, being polite, being kind, and not hurting people's feelings. And it's actually the exact opposite. And he lays out the basic principles of how to have these tough conversations with people that you love and people that you don't love. Like, what are the rules of the road when you're going to enter into a difficult conversation? How do you manage your emotions? How do you walk away without killing each other at this point? There's a book by James Davison Hunter called Before the Shooting Starts that I started reading this week. And it basically is a book that's kind of along these lines, and it takes abortion and it tries to diagnose the structure of the conversation around abortion and kind of saying, like, if we don't get this together, the shooting is going to start. And we're at that point. We're at the point where we're shooting each other over opinions. And I think that's absolutely horrible. It doesn't mean that we're going to get better speech. It doesn't mean that we're going to get better outcomes as a country. It means things are going to get much worse. It makes us prey to people that want power. And if we don't have civility and some basic rules around how to have these tough conversations, we're going to be much weaker as a country, and we're going to be much poorer in spirit as a people. So thanks to Jeff for coming on. You can find out more about his summit and his project and his articles in the show notes. I invite you to do that. And please, hope you learned something, and thanks so much for joining me. All right, Jeff, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we have known each other. I don't know a lot about you, but like, you asked me to come and help you with a campaign commercial, and I didn't know if you were Republican or Democrat when I came up to help. But I have just enjoyed getting to know you over the years through podcasting and other means. Why don't you give the listeners a little bit of an introduction into who you are and what you do on a daily basis?
Sure. So, but actually, your reputation preceded you. So I chased you. I wanted to meet you. So I'm now in my third term on the Carmel City Council. Yep. So I'm in my 10th year.
Okay.
But before that, I got to know Mayor Brainerd, and he put me on multiple boards and commissions, and I was heavily involved in the Carmel Redevelopment Commission.
Gotcha.
And that was all the building and everything that we've done over the last now it's 26 years.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I did that, but the way I got to know him was I owned a business and I located it in Carmel. And so, you're going to Chamber of Commerce meetings and all of a sudden I'm sitting next to the mayor and we get to talking, and I was heavily involved in a lot of volunteerism.
Yeah.
Having worked with the previous mayor for Carmel Fest and that kind of thing. And it just evolved. I'm grateful for the opportunities that Mayor Brainerd gave me because I learned what government and municipal government specifically was all about. And I remember him saying often, when you hear the negative and people, I can't believe you did that, or what's Brainerd up to? He always told me, we're doing what he believes is what's best for the community and for the citizens. And I know a lot of people may not believe that, but he told it to me over and over again to where I absolutely believe it.
That's one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on for a long time, because having started in local talk radio and working in local politics and working around journalism, what you see online is so different than what you see in real life when it comes to government. It's more Parks and Rec than it is House of Cards by far. But I do feel like the online discussions are starting to infiltrate, and I'll ask that in the next question. But for people who don't know, I grew up not in Carmel. We never really went to Carmel. Carmel here in Indianapolis, this is sort of a nationally reaching show. Here locally, it's like where all the rich people lived. And it's like, and that just breeds jealousy and resentment. I'm like, forget Carmel.
Yeah.
But then I meet you, and you're like Mr. Carmel. You're the champion of Carmel, and kind of explain, here's all the great things about Carmel. Invite me up to Carmel. I'm like, all these third places that have developed, the sense of community that is here, the stability. I think it's been really interesting. So I want you to please explain what Carmel is for those who aren't around here, and then give the pitch for Carmel.
Sure.
Give us a little context.
I love doing that. So the first thing I would say about Carmel is the people in Carmel, and we now have generations of Carmel citizens who, young people who return home raising their families. That's a beautiful thing. But the people in Carmel are passionate and care deeply. Carmel in the old days was known for its schools. The leaders at the time said, this is what we're going to focus on. We're going to make the schools and the product of our schools the best that they can possibly be. And so that gave us an edge, allowed us to really start to excel in other ways. When Mayor Brainerd came in, he had a vision for Carmel. And I bought into that vision pretty quick because I remember Main Street when there was an old factory that had the big steel beam out the side where they would have a crane thing, and it was a T-shirt store. And all the single-story cement brick buildings. And when he started, well, actually, I'll tell you a story. So in 1994, when Mayor Brainerd won election and came into office in 95, I was president of the Carmel Chamber of Commerce. And in those days, we met in this dilapidated old farmhouse, not dilapidated, but an old farmhouse. We kept it up, but it was an old farmhouse from the 1800s right on Main Street. And the board, we would have board meetings and we met up in the attic. So Mayor Brainerd says, I want to come talk to the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce. That would be a normal thing for a new mayor to do. And so I said, okay. So we have our meetings at 7:30 in the morning, and he comes bounding up the stairs, and his arms are full of these drawings and boards. And around that huge oak table were the bankers and the lawyers and the business owners and the intelligentsia of Carmel back in 95. And so Mayor Brainerd starts talking about how he's going to rebuild downtown. And he is showing pictures of what downtown Carmel could actually become. And I remember he had a drawing of an archway over one of the streets, and he called it the Arts and Design District. But he was just on and on and on. And when he left, the meeting was over. People asked their questions. When he left, he had so much energy. It was like just air was sucked out of the room. And everybody around that table looked at each other and said, this man is crazy. This will never happen. And he had even actually mentioned, and I want to tear this building down and put up what is there now, which is a live, work, play unit.
Yeah.
So it was, no one believed it, including me. I did not believe that it was possible. So here we had a man who was willing to set a vision and then do what he thought needed to be done in order to achieve that vision. And it wasn't always easy. And, he had to be a strong will and all that kind of stuff. So what I think now is people really appreciate what they have.
Yeah.
And they're grateful for where they live and that there are so many benefits to living in Carmel. But it's for everyone. It is,
Yeah.
We have housing, could it be cheaper? Yes, but because of Carmel's success, land prices tend to go up.
Yeah.
But it's culturally diverse, and it is, we have 109 languages in our high school.
Yeah, I think 30 years ago you would describe it as like rich white man Republican, and it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
It's evened out a lot because everybody wants security. Everybody wants good schools.
Yep.
And we go to Carmel a lot because of things like the Christmas market.
Yeah.
And I think what Carmel has done here locally because of that vision, and public spending, we're not going to get into all that, but what you have done, I think, is set the template for all of these other places. Like I grew up in Plainfield.
Yep.
So I've paid attention to Plainfield a lot over the years. They have Carmelized themselves, right? Greenwood, people don't, I think, pay attention. Like schools are all pretty good in the suburbs now. It's sort of even. People don't pay attention to taxes as much as you'd think. So they go, well, yeah, this town has a water park.
Yep.
This town has a Christmas market. This town has that, right? And so that competition, I would think, for you guys has been growing because of the vision of community. Let's make this a community and connect it together instead of just sort of being an unnetworked group of subdivisions.
That's correct. Absolutely. Yeah. You're spot on. And we welcome the competition. A rising tide floats all boats.
Yeah.
The other communities in Hamilton County are absolutely on fire, and I believe they're following the Carmel roadmap. We build a lot of public spaces in order to encourage that connection where I might go to Midtown, right in the heart of Carmel, a big green space surrounded by restaurants, and see my neighbor who I can't remember the last time I saw him at the mailbox. So that has been really a key factor of the way we build our infrastructure that includes public spaces, public amenities, beauty, art, other things, rather than just putting up a structure.
I grew up in Plainfield, suburb of Indianapolis, moved to Greenwood area, was there for 15 years. Now I live in downtown Indianapolis. Okay, we were trying to find a place to live in 21, and it was really hard. And people think where I live is super dangerous, so the rent is cheap. It's actually really lovely. Like, the perception of my parents and her parents and our friends and us at the time was like, if we move to this part of town, we're going to get shot. Everything is going to get stolen. Our kids can't play outside. What I found is city living is so communal compared to suburban living.
It is.
And you nailed it in that. It's like you never see your neighbor at the mailbox. We walk to church, and on our way to church, we wave at 7 people that go to church with us, right? Like, we've made friends. Rose, last night, we hadn't seen each other in 3 months. She had her baby. We had our baby. We're catching up. There's interactions that you have when you live where we live because of walkability, local restaurants that are within a walking distance. It's kind of the 15-minute cities concept. And what I find interesting is that Carmel has taken that mentality of you don't have to be a stranger in the suburbs.
That's right.
And applied it. And I'd love for that to flourish, because part of why I think we are there's so much incivility right now. We feel super isolated. We're lonely. We're not having the conversations that we may have had 30 years ago, 50 years ago. There's no Sertoma clubs. There's no Lions clubs. Everybody's doing travel ball instead of Optimist ball. In your sense as a city councilor and community leader, how much has the shift towards a lack of permanence, a lack of community contributed to our political moment?
Well, I think it has a lot. I do talk about, so even in Carmel, as great as it is, I still have residents who will reach out to me with an issue that I really think, and this is routine, but I think it's really none of my business, but an issue with a neighbor. And when I say, have you talked to your neighbor about this? They'll say, no, they might get mad at me. I mean, I got to live next door to them. And, in the old, in my day, and I am old.
25 years ago.
Yeah. We would have just said, hey, your tree is hanging over in my yard. Would you mind, if I cut that branch down? Or your dog is pooping in my yard. Would you keep him, in your own yard?
Yeah.
Or would you at least pick up? It's these little things. So that is a function of the fact that there is this isolation and a fear that if we disagree, you're not going to like me anymore.
Right.
Even if it's something as simple as a tree, just some issue about a tree that could be easily solved over the back fence by talking about it. I'm finding that people have been worried about having that conversation. And then, of course, it escalates from there. Thanksgiving dinner can be a nightmare for many families.
Yeah.
Or, we get into, I watch Fox and you watch MSNBC and we can't even have breakfast together because of how we feel about each other's politics. Or there's a sign, the political sign that was in your front yard. Oh boy, I know you're bad because of that sign, which just happened to be the other party. So it's we're working on it.
Yeah, I was actually just reading you when you walked in, and you started an article. You write a lot at The Current, which is a local newspaper.
Yeah, and I'm grateful to them for giving me that opportunity.
Disagreement gets a bad rap. Somewhere along the way, we began to treat it like a threat, something to avoid or battle. But what if the opposite is true? What if disagreement is exactly what strengthens our communities? And you go on to talk about a conversation at dinner with somebody that you disagreed with, and you start to get defensive and well up. But explain why disagreement is actually good in your view.
Yeah, well, we have to have it. I mean, our country, the founding fathers, disagreement, come on, they disagreed in the beginning. So we have to have disagreement. Disagreement is healthy. I see it on the dais being a city councilor. I will sometimes go, oh my gosh, of course, what a great point. And they were in violent disagreement with me. So it's how we manage that disagreement. How do we choose civility, not let our emotions trigger us into a response that is uncivil? How do we disagree and then say, well, okay, I guess we're not going to agree on that, but let's go have lunch. Or I'd love to invite you over next time up on my porch when I see you walking down the street, walking your dog. So we have some core principles at the Project Civility group that we've created in Carmel. And one of the things is that when we disagree and there is no chance of agreeing because, and we're all raised a certain way. We all have a history. There's a reason you think the way you do and a reason I think the way I do. And I don't think either one of them can be discounted. But when there is no chance of disagreement, I'm going to still look for some common ground. Hey, we're both from Carmel. Isn't Carmel a great place to live? Let's go down to Sun King. I am actually going to understand and treat you with respect. I am actually going to value and at least listen to your point of view. Don't have to agree with it, but should we part as, that we have that there is disagreement, we cannot come together. You'll never convince me. And that's not ever my goal, is to convince you. But when that happens, that there would be no desire for punishment, to hate, to harm you in some way, to embarrass you, to get online and let somebody know, what I think of you, to tribalize, the tribalization that's gone on. Those are really our core principles, is that we're looking to treat each other with respect, common ground, and no desire for harm.
No desire for harm, treat each other with respect, find common ground. I, as you were talking, thought of like 15 examples through there from the last week alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just really important to go into these conversations with like an agreement. So I'm on a podcast called The Pat Down with very different worldviews. We had a contentious episode about 3 weeks ago, and Dion's yelling at me. I'm going, that's not right. How could you say that about me? Second, we turn off the mics. He goes, I love you, man.
Yeah.
And like that right there, I think is like the core fundamental promise going into it. It's like, you're frustrating me because you don't get it. It's not a matter of like, we are going into the conversation in order to remain friends. No matter what happens in this disagreement, we're going to say, I love you, man, at the end of that conversation. Yeah. I just think that is like such a fundamental premise because friendships are so easily given up on, right? Well, this relationship's not working out for me, as opposed to like maybe an older mindset of like, let's have a covenant friendship.
That's right.
No matter what you do, no matter what you say, I'm going to tell you, we're going to work through it, as opposed to something that's a little more modern, which is like, you've now violated my moral code. I'm going to go find people that think exactly like me.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
It is, that really is one of the basic parts of this is that even if I can acknowledge your point of view, even though I don't agree with it, but I could acknowledge it. And instead of sitting there going, my next thing I'm going to stab you with, I'm not even listening to what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think understanding that, man, Chris, there's a reason you feel the way you do. And there's a reason I feel the way I do. If we can accept that, not agree with it, but accept the fact that there's a whole history of how I was raised and my parents and goes back to their parents or whatever, or my schooling, my education, whatever it is, there's a reason I'm thinking the way I do. And so if I can have some empathy for that,
yeah,
and say, okay, I get it, don't agree with it, it makes the conversation go so much better.
Yeah.
And then being able to just manage your emotions if I'm getting frustrated, to understand that's my problem. That's not his problem. That's my problem.
Well, do you think that like sometimes people engage in a way like yesterday, I get called names all the time by a bunch of different people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just part of public life. But I really try hard not to project onto other people like, look, you idiot.
Yep.
I think you have to really commit to not inflaming, not trying to like, you can hold your position without trying to inflict pain on other people, which is that second part, which is do no harm in the conversation.
Right. But now there are multiple examples of friends who, and I have one, who like to debate, like to banter and roll around in the mud of ideas. And there's nothing wrong with that because we understand, and we are going to say at the end, I love you, man. And we're going to go, get a bite to eat.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying we don't ever want to have those really fierce, intense conversations, but we have to keep everything in context. Now, if it's my neighbor or my uncle and they're coming at me with a political viewpoint or a neighborhood viewpoint, or they are, want to stir the pot, there are multiple techniques out there of how to rise above the emotion and handle those conversations. And that's one of the things Project Civility we're working on is to, create many workshops, how to disagree better, how to, depolarize from within. There's lots of that out there. I'm finding people want to be reminded of it. What are some techniques? What are some strategies to listen, then acknowledge the other viewpoint, then maybe pivot and then provide your perspective.
Yeah. Do you have any tips, techniques, or recommendation of resources? Because I'll get to the retreat next, but part of why people want to retreat or don't want to engage is that feeling I'm going to be abused. I'm going to be, and I'm not going to have the facts to back up my point of view. Like this person, every time we talk about it, just starts yelling. Like, how do you deal with that person that's just like difficult in conversation, or where can you point them to learn more?
Right. So there are lots of techniques, and I'm not advocating any one thing, but one of the things that you might consider is if someone isn't going to engage with you in a thoughtful, civil manner, then why bother? You know, why engage? If your uncle, and I always go back to this because people always ask me, my uncle, at Thanksgiving, he always wants to start bashing on so-and-so. Well, change the conversation. If it's not what you want to talk about, if it doesn't do anything to enhance the relationship or to try and get to common ground, if no one, then you don't have to have that conversation. So that's number one. And a lot of people don't realize that you're in control. You don't have to engage in that conversation. It's easy to talk about something else, which is a form of, let's find some common ground. What do we agree on? Let's have a conversation about that.
Yeah.
But really, it's about listening. It is about acknowledging that I understand the way you think and why you think that way without agreeing, but to acknowledge, okay, you're important. You're a human being. Your opinion is as valuable as mine. That is huge. And I use that all the time in my job as a city councilor because sometimes people just want to be heard.
Yeah.
They just want someone to say, I understand how you feel. I can't agree with it, or I'm not going to be able to vote the way you think I should vote, but I understand.
Yeah.
And here are my reasons why I'm going to have to vote the other way. And I understand that you're not going to like that. And I understand that is, you're not going to agree with me, but I at least am glad we're having the conversation. So listening, acknowledging, and then trying to easily pivot to your perspective without the hammer, without the, well, I heard you say that and that is not true. And, keeping the emotions at a level that is more manageable, unless that's what the relationship's built on and you enjoy it. So
Yeah.
There are people like that. I mean, I literally have one where we have no rules.
This is Indiana. We have those rules. If you're like from the East Coast, like my friend Brian Nichols, we argue all the time. He's from Philly, New York. Like that's his love language is arguing with me, and
you
vice
understand
versa.
it.
Yeah,
and you have empathy for that.
Yeah,
and that's part of his.
Because we're going into it. Dion, Pat, Brian. Dennis, we're going into it to argue, to learn from each other and be shaped by their point of view. Yeah.
And that's a lot of fun and very healthy and what our country's built on. And that really isn't that's not being uncivil.
Yeah.
So it's really the waiter did not refill my water glass as many times as I thought he should. And so I'm going to get online and trash the entire restaurant. And I'm going to broadcast it to anyone that can read my post. Or that because you watch Fox News, I can't let my kids come over and play with you, your kids. Or, that kind of stuff. That's what we're trying to disagree better.
Okay, so a common critique of civility, and I guess we probably should define it. Why don't you define civility? What is it?
Well, the way we are defining it, and I kind of mentioned that a little bit earlier, but we are, so when we are going to have an interaction, and it's one that we expect, not like what you're doing with your friends, but there's going to be an interaction. I'm going to approach you, and I'm going to, first of all, accept that you're a human being. You have value. I need to respect you. And I need to appreciate that you have a history and a reason why you think the way you do. Number two, that I'm going to try and find some common ground, any bit of common ground, anything that will give us the basis for creating a relationship or for enhancing the relationship or not making it about just duking it out and trying to fix you. I can't change the way you think. I can only change the way I think. So, and then the third one is that we desire no harm. And I'm telling you that, I almost cringe when I say this, but it's not to punish, embarrass, or, just make a fool of you or broadcast to the world how bad you are. Shoot you.
Yeah.
And I mean, did we have to say that, but not shoot you or stab you or whatever the worst thing that we've seen lately. And then the fourth way that we are defining it is that we, is a core value, are nonpartisan. We don't care about your politics, but we're not going to shy away from politics. So if we see something we believe is uncivil, we're still going to approach it in a respectful manner, but we are not, all this are bad and all that is good. We're not any of that. So that's how we're defining civility. Now, there are books written that go into much more detail.
Yeah, and one of the common critiques of civility is that it is a tool that people will use to keep systems, like let's say white supremacy, just be quiet, don't talk, so keep it civil, don't be radical. But that's not exactly what I hear you saying. What I hear you saying, and I'd love for you to address that, like the critique from radicals about civility, saying like you're really just trying to keep everybody polite instead of like you're violating my values, you deserve to be punished. But what I hear you saying is actually like have courage. Don't just be a wallflower. Don't just always retreat. But like we should come at it and go, you think I'm a white supremacist. I think you're this. Let's argue those things out. And maybe you're not even going to come to a conclusion, but at least you've put it on the table to have a discussion about it, which is so much more brave than like disconnection in my viewpoint.
That's exactly right. One of my heroes, Daryl Davis, he's the founder of the Pro-Human Foundation. He makes it his mission he's a black man, makes it his mission to go out and find people who hate blacks. He's got started with the Ku Klux Klan. He befriended the Grand Wizard or whatever that person is called, and they are now good friends. He did not shy away, but he also didn't go at them with hate. Even though there was hate coming at him, he didn't go at them with hate. He didn't go at them with, I'm going to change you, but I would like to understand you and I'd like to be your friend. Could we find some common ground? And of course, building that relationship is the beauty of his story, because it became harder for the Grand Wizard to hate Daryl just because of the color of his skin and to start to question. And they're really good friends. And I don't have every detail of his life. I tried to get him for my summit, and we were this close, but he had a conflict and I couldn't make the airfare work. So I think we'll probably have him for next year. So, and I can't remember the question. I'm so sorry.
Well, I think if you go into it and like, all right, we need to recognize someone's fundamental humanity, and that other person isn't recognizing your humanity, then you disconnect.
Yeah.
But at least you've put it on the table and had the conversation.
That's right.
Like I will, for Miss Pat said, like sometimes you just got to call the family member a racist, put it on the table, and let them deal with that. Because if you're not blunt, then they're never going to learn. There's never going to be that discussion. And I've thought a lot about that, and I get that from different points of view, because but I think you've got to actually have courage to have the conversation. Civility is not just being a shrinking violet.
It is not. Great point. It is not about being polite or being kind. There are a lot of polite people who are very uncivil.
Yeah.
But what I might raise as just a concept is that instead of saying you're a racist, I might approach it with, please help me understand why, because I'm a black man, or why, because my friend over here is black who you don't like. Why do you feel that way based on the color of that man's skin? Why do you why do you talk about black people? Make it more of a question and instead of an accusation. Now, at some point you may have to accuse, but at least give them the opportunity to explain and soften it a little bit so that we don't get into the verbal duke in it.
Yeah, but you're also just raising the point. Like, hey, we don't do that. Like, help me understand this. Why do you think this way?
Yeah.
Let's talk about retreat, okay? Because this is much more my style. I'm not an attack guy. I'm a people pleaser. What I have been struck by in the last week, as I just have committed to like trying to find a way to talk about principles and politics and religion and things without inciting people.
Yeah. And I think you do it.
Yeah. And I've had so many people say, I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can. Just read a couple books, make some friends, right? But Why do you think so many people sit on the sidelines as opposed to getting engaged in the conversation?
Well, I think it's no different than being afraid to talk to their neighbor about the tree. They're afraid that if they disagree, then they're not going to like me. They're going to get mad. They're going to get angry. They're going to, retaliate. They're going to do something to me next. I mean, everywhere you look, there's retaliation. There is a consequence to the disagreement. And that's what we've got to get away from. That's what we're trying to talk about at the upcoming summit is that, it's okay to disagree. Well, one of my upcoming columns is it is absolutely okay to disagree if we do it in the correct manner and we don't let our emotions overtake and that we are following some of the basic tenets of good conversation. But no, we have to disagree. So I think it's fear. It's fear of the consequence, fear of you're not going to like me. If I really let you know how I think about that sign in your yard that is for somebody I'm not voting for, you won't like me. And I suppose there's lots of social, infrastructure in that whole thing that I'm not smart enough to know about.
I guess give some wisdom on that. I mean, you've lived a public life for a long time, been in public service as a counselor, dealt with tough, contentious issues. Like if you put up something on Facebook that your friends are going to get mad at, like what happens?
Well, I'm guilty of not putting my party's candidate sign in my front yard because of my neighbors and not wanting to. So I'm guilty of that.
Sure.
Retreating, shirking, running away because I didn't want to deal with it, because I thought I would make them mad because I hear all the time. So, yeah. And you just made me think of it and it's uncomfortable. Yeah. But it also wasn't important enough for me to broadcast a candidate at the expense of a relationship with my neighbors. So that also maybe goes a little bit with, the Thanksgiving dinner when somebody wants to trash.
Pick your spots.
Exactly. Yeah. Pick your battles. So in my world, there's always disagreement and a lack of respect for the person on the other side. One of the things I did in my last campaign, which I found out was, not appreciated by some of my colleagues, was I campaigned to earn the vote of not only my party in the general election, but also the Democrats. I'm a Republican in Carmel,
Right.
And I did actively go after Democrat votes as it's too complicated for this, but I went after in a public way Democrat votes, and that did disappoint some of my colleagues. It did disappoint the party. And frankly, I felt like I thought I served everybody. That's my way of looking at this. And if I could appeal to them, I was trying to win the election.
I would say understanding going into it, you're going to disappoint people as a rule is just part of it.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to disappoint people. But I think my advice is take some time to figure out what you believe. Part of that insecurity is that people don't really know what they believe because they're just formed by 30-second TikTok clips and they're kind of looking around going, okay, my friends are saying this, so maybe I should say that. Like that to me is fashion. That's not formation, right? Formation is reading some books, showing up to meetings, having in-person discussions, getting clear on your personal values, the principles that you think make a society work. And then once you've done that work, then speaking confidently. And then when you speak confidently, spending half the time listening to the feedback that you get.
Yeah.
And then redoing what you said, maybe in a different way, changing what you believe, thinking differently. Like the experience with the pat down with a large progressive audience has made this white suburban libertarian a lot more sympathetic, empathetic towards viewpoints that I didn't hold 10, 15 years ago. It's just part of it because I'm trying to listen and while not giving up core beliefs, but like, okay, I'm wrong on these ways. I need to do these things differently. But then even in that practice, there are people on the left that are like disappointed that there's not total capitulation.
Right.
And there's people on the right who view me as a traitor. It's like, but my core group of friends is really tight because of that. Like if people on the periphery that I never talk to think I'm one way that's okay.
Yeah.
Disappointment just comes with speaking boldly and having some courage.
Yeah. And totally agree with you. And that I would just point to that experience I had in the last campaign and how it all turned out and how I was viewed by my colleagues.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's exactly what you just
Sometimes you're just going to have to do the wrong thing. If it's the right thing is doing the wrong thing to a certain group of people, like that's just is what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm glad I didn't even debate it. I serve everybody in Carmel, and I asked for their vote.
Yeah. Carmel, when Brainerd stepped down and had a pretty brutal mayoral race, got uncivil. Is part of this project a response to that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That was in November of 23. I picked up, I don't even remember how I found this book, The Soul of Civility by Alexandra Hudson.
Yeah.
But I found it, and what caught my attention was the subtitle, Timeless Principles to Heal Ourselves and Society.
Yep.
And I was feeling a little wounded because of that experience that I had, and seeing what all happened and just seeing the vitriol around that campaign that I wasn't used to in Carmel. That was my third time running for office, primary and general. And I just don't remember that in the past.
Yeah.
So I start reading this book and oh my goodness, this is a roadmap, and I need my community to read it with me.
Yeah.
So I invited Alexandra to the library for an author talk, which we do at the Carmel Library.
Yeah, and just to let people know, I interview a lot of Young Voices people. Lexi's one of the original Young Voices people, and Libertarian, and writes Civic Renaissance on Substack. Yep. We go to church together. I mean, she's become a friend of both of us, and her book is fantastic.
It is absolutely fantastic. I tell everyone who will listen to me, read the book.
Yeah.
And because it is practical, it's pragmatic, it's a roadmap. There were things in there that hopefully I'm espousing now, and hopefully she's proud of me, but I'm a student of Lexi's book and Lexi's work.
So you had this book study, and was it like 400 people showed up to the first event?
I set up 35 chairs and 370 showed up. It was unbelievable, Chris.
Yeah.
I could not believe it. So that right there told me, number one, did Lexi do a great job? But number two, that told me people are hungry, and they wanted to talk about civility. They wanted to know how to be civil. They wanted to know how to build civility, how to get more civility. And that was frankly the problem with the next day, because my email blew up, my phone blew up. We've got to do this. We got to do that. You should do this. You should, we got to go to the school.
Yeah.
We got to get the faith. Blah, blah. And it was overwhelming. And so we had to back up, kind of pause, and build an organization. So we built the Carmel Civility Foundation, Inc., created a board of directors, committees, a program called Project Civility. We have a consumer brand, Be Civil, which we're on, putting on T-shirts and hats and water bottles and all that kind of stuff in order to sustain the, the foundation. And we then had the crazy idea of taking what we learned in Carmel and taking it nationwide. So that's what we're working on right now.
Yeah, and so you have a civility summit coming up. And so if you're one of these people who's listening to this going, I want to build those muscles, this is a good place to start.
It is. So I'll tell you what, we kind of have two tracks. And yes, to that question, but during this last 18 months, I had to keep the concept of civility alive in Carmel while we built the infrastructure.
Right.
So we started talking about and writing the columns and producing videos and speaking at churches and Rotary and all those kind of places, talking about the tenets of civility. How can we be more civil in Carmel? And I did get an email like, why are you running around saying Carmel isn't civil? And I'm like, I never said that. I'm just saying we can do better.
You will be misinterpreted.
Yes.
No matter how clear, no matter how long you spend on the grammar, you will be misinterpreted.
That's
right. Accept it.
So one of the things that has happened during these 18 months is a city councilor, I get emails all the time from people who want to share their opinion with me.
Yeah,
and
of course.
tell me that I've made a mistake or they disagree with me. And what has started to happen, and now it is very common, I will get an email. Instead of calling me an idiot, they'll say, I want to disagree with you.
Nice.
But I am aware of your civility initiative. I support it. And so I'm going to, they'll show empathy. They'll say, I know this is a hard decision, but here's my opinion, and here's why I think you're making a mistake. I love that.
Yeah.
I had never received anything like that in the past. So there were some folks in Colorado, thanks to Lexi, who, when they reached out to her, she said, well, you got to go talk to the folks up in Carmel. She connected us, and now Colorado Springs is doing some of the same things that Colorado is, and we've created a civility city. And so then we decided, well, let's share it with the country. And so we mailed an invitation to every mayor in America and asked them to come or send a representative to Carmel, Indiana, and so that we can define civility, work together to be inspired by civility, work on some skills for practicing civility, and then have a workshop to collaborate and take home a plan to begin the civility initiative or become a civility city in your geography or with your community. So I have imams coming, representatives from the Hindu community, from the arts community, the LGBTQ community, lots of communities coming, as well as mayors, county council or county commissioners, a congresswoman, we have a state representative coming. So we from all over the country, and we're going to hopefully create a network of people that leave Carmel after the summit, which is not this coming weekend, but I should say September 26th and 27th, and send them home. And hopefully we will all work together to change the language, change the way we disagree with each other.
So you don't have to be local to go, but
No.
if you are local, they're
go.
more likely to come. But how can people find tickets if they want to come and get involved?
We still have seats available. And so you go to Project. You notice I'm saying project.
I know, and it really annoyed me in the beginning of the podcast, to be honest with you, but then I figured it out kind of once we got to Project. All right.
So
I was like, does he know that it's not Project?
Well,
what is he, Canadian?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Hey.
But I wanted to be civil.
Yeah, thank you.
You're a guest. I didn't want to insult you by pronouncing your own project wrong.
So the the effort is Project Civility, but we're turning that into an action, and we're going to project civility. So projectcivility.com.
Yeah.
Go to the summit page, and you can either sign up for just Friday night, which is a fireside chat with former Governor Mitch Daniels.
Oh, nice.
And Lexi.
Yeah.
And I'll be moderating a fireside chat. That is on Friday night at the Fire Buffs Museum in Carmel. All the details are on the website. And if you want to do the whole conference, you can sign up for that. It's Friday and Saturday, where we hope to turn you into a civilian. No, I should not. So
too far.
Too
Grammar nerds are going to be out for your head.
That's right. So we'll work on building a network.
All right. Well, if people want to get in touch with you personally and ask questions,
please
leave them with a final word and then tell them how to get a hold of you.
I love the conversations. There is a way at projectcivility.com to just engage with me, and I promise to call you back or email or whatever information you give me. My email is Jeff, WORRELL at projectcivility.com. My phone number, 317-696-0162. Happy to speak to you and would encourage you to get involved.
All right, Jeff. Thanks so much.
You bet. Thank you for having me, Chris. I'm grateful.
My pleasure. Yeah.